Okay. Right. We reached the point yesterday that we got to Samach Vav, the first Mishnah. Okay, so that's where we're starting this morning. Okay, I just want to indicate that next week I'm going to be having some surgery. And so for at least a day or two, Michael has been kind enough to agree that he will do the shear that day or days. Thank you.
Give us a warning when.
What?
Give us a warning when.
Okay. When you see I'm not here, you'll know.
I'll be wearing your sweater that
Okay.
day. That's cool. That's collegiate.
Okay, Matt Nathan. Okay, again, just a brief a reminder that we're still going through the examples from our first Mishnah at the beginning of the parak as to what situations warranted the death penalty by stoning. Okay? All right, so the Gemara Mishnah starts off, okay, as follows. Hamechalel et Shabbat, one who desecrates the Sabbath. Okay, and I'm reading into the Mishnah here, and receives a full warning, and therefore is punishable by skila. Okay, in that case, all right, what happens? Tanu Rabbanan. Okay, I'm sorry, but all right, B'davar shechayavin als dono koreit. Okay, so what happens in that case? That if he's okay, that situation, va'al shigigato chata. So reading into the Mishnah, we see he has to have a forewarning, and then would be receiving punishment of skila. If there is no forewarning, okay, then the point is that if it's done by mezid, it's karet, and then if it's done by shogeg, there's a chatat. Okay. So the Gemara short piece, Miklal de Ika Mide, the Chilul Shabbat Have ve'en chayvin. This would seem to imply, we would infer from the language of the Mishnah, that there is a situation where one might be desecrating the Shabbos, okay, but not be held guilty in this manner. Okay, lo al shgigato chatat, not on by unintentional having to bring a chatas offering. Velo al zduno koreit, nor would they be if done with mazid with intention that they would be have a karet punishment. Maihi, what kind of an example might that be? Says the Mishnah, the Gemara. I'm sorry, tchumim. According to one view, it is going past the Shabbat boundaries. Va'alib the Rabbi Akiva. And that seems to be the view of Rabbi Akiva, okay, who may present that it's only a lav and therefore would receive malchus, right? But make a note by Art Scroll if you're using note Art Scroll number 7, okay, to look at it later, okay? However, then we go on. Okay, havara, or what about a different possibility? Suggests the Gemara, namely kindling, valiba the Rabbi Yossi, and that's the view of Rabbi Yossi. So again, here too, Rabbi Yossi also felt it was simply a lav. Okay, and that was his view. Okay, right, and not regarding we saw that machloket earlier in the Gemara, where it was Rabbi Yossi who said it was a lav, it was singled out for a lav, as opposed to, I believe it was Rabbi Yehuda, who disagreed with him, who said it was lechiluk. Okay, but make a note to look at Art Scroll note number 8 at that, excuse me, on that point. Okay, all right, we continue now with another Mishnah. Okay, this Mishnah goes into another example. Hamakalel aviv ve'imo, one who curses his father and his mother, eino chayav ad shekalalam b'shem, okay, is not considered liable until he curses them with the use of the divine name. Okay? Well, we'll see in a second. Okay, kilalam b'kinui. If, however, he sorry, he cursed them using a kinui, a name that is not the actual name. Let's say he uses something like hamakom, for example. Okay, something like that, or similar kinds of kinuyim. All right. Okay, he would be exempt from skila and would receive instead malchus. Okay, Rabbi Meir mechayev. According to Rabbi Meir, says the Mishnah, he would still be liable. V'chachamim potrim, but the sages say no, he is exempt, as I said, from skila, but instead would get malchus. Okay, so Gemara asks directly, Man chachamim. Which chachamim are we talking about? Rabbi Menachem Rabbi Yossi. That's who we're talking about. The Tanya is taught by Rabbi Menachem Rabbi Yossi, who says as follows: Binakvo shem yumat. Okay, there we're saying that it's clear that if he utilizes, okay, specifies the divine name, the person would be put to death. Okay, Ma Talmud Loma. What are we saying? On what basis is he saying this? Shame, okay, limed al mikalel aviv v'imo, she'eno chayav ad sheyikalelam b'shem. Okay, that clear when we say the name, okay, or name, it's teaching us that it's one who curses father and mother. Okay, it's not liable until he does so utilizing the divine. Tanu Rabbana, and make a note again by number 15 on Art Scroll under this circumstance. It says the following Braita, Ish. Okay, so we're citing really the Pasuk. Remember the Pasuk is in Vayikra 20, Ki Ish Asher Yikalel et Aviv et Imo. The first part of the Pasuk. Okay, we have Dalash of the word Ish there. So the Gemara is saying in a Braita here, Ish, when it says a person, Ma Talmud Loma, what is it trying to teach us? Ish. Okay? In other words, it doesn't mean man. It means person, any person. Okay? L'rabot bat. Okay, to include a daughter. Tumtum, to include somebody whose gender is questionable. Va'andrigonus, or to include somebody who's born and may possess aspects of both genders. Asher yikalel et aviv et imo. Okay, in other words, one who curses the father and his mother, and the implication here is together.
Right.
Okay, Ainli ella aviv imo. This T seems to be rather his father and his mother. Va'aviv shalo imo. What about his father but not his mother? Imo shalo aviv, or his mother and not his father. Minayin, how do we know this? Talmud Loma, says the pasuk, aviv imo kileil. That is the second part of the pasuk that I just did not cite in its entirety. Okay, damav bo. Okay, so there's the rest of that pasuk telling us that again, that implies the penalty for one of them, not just both. Right? Okay, aviv kilel. Okay, if it says that his father he cursed, amar kilel, imo kilel. He said his mother he cursed. Divrei Rabbi Yoshia. That's the view of Rabbi Yoshia. Rabbi Yonatan Omer, he says, mashma shnehem ke'echad. This implies the two of them together. Umashma echad b'fnei atzmo, okay, and also implies each one of them separately. Ad sheyifrot lecha hakatuv yachdav. Why? Because it's the fact that the pasuk specifies the two of them. Okay, mot yumat. Again, that was the second part of the pasuk, that they were put to death. How? Beskila, by means of stoning. Ata omer, that's what you're saying? Beskila, that it's through stoning. Oeno ela bechad mikol mitota amurot b'Torah. Or perhaps it might be one of the other methods of death penalty referred to in the Torah. Namely, says the Gemara, to show, ne'emar kan damavbo. Here we see that the pasuk at the end specifically says his blood, okay, is to be, I'm going to use the word demanded in a sense here, okay? V'ne'emar lahalan. Read the phrase Baal Ov and Yidoni. We also have the phrase Mehem Bam, that their bloods are demanded in this situation as well. Malahalan Beskila, the same way there we see regarding Baal Ov and Yidoni, the punishment of Skila, right? Afkan Beskila. So here we learn there, here too, there is the punishment of Skila. So now the Gemara goes on, okay, and tells us, Onish Shamanu. Here we have learned or heard the punishment as haraminayan. Okay, what about a warning? Okay, Talmud Lomar says the Braita. Okay, we have another pasuk that says initially, Elohim lo tikalel, that one should not curse, and I'm going to use the word here, Elohim, and we're going to try to clarify based on this pasuk, okay, does this reference imply the divine being, or does it imply uh, citizen, human judges? Okay, Vagomer. Okay, so the Braita goes on. Im haya aviv dayan, were his father to be a judge, harehu bichlal, Elohim, he would therefore be considered to be included in the category of the pasuk Elohim lo tikalel, and that would be implying that we would understand the phrase implying human judges. V'im haya aviv nasi, and were his father to be a leader, okay, harehu bichlal. There too, he would be included in another category, but from a different pasuk, unasi ba'amcha lo ta'or. Okay, there's another pasuk that says the leader of the people, okay, you should not curse. Okay, make a note by Art Scroll number 32 in this case, where they go into much more detail. Okay, right? What happens? So we have these two psukim that would cover the prohibition of cursing one's father, were one father to be a judge or a leader of the people. Okay, but the Gemara is not finished there. Okay, as it goes on. Eno lo dayan velo nasi minayan. If the father then is neither a judge nor a leader of the people, okay, how then do we have a basis of a warning, okay, regarding the prohibition, okay, and the punishment? Okay, amarta hare atadan binyan av mishnehen. Here, however, you can say that we will maybe apply a homiletical principle known as binyan av in this situation.
Like in Baba Kama,
Okay.
beginning.
So as I said, I point out that Art Scroll note number 32 goes into a very nice, full explanation of what a binyan av is, okay, and give the example. I'm just going to give a very short uh, point to say that what we're looking for is a common characteristic, okay, that we can derive from these items and then apply to another situation. Okay, so that's a very short. Okay, Shoarei hatadan binyan av mishnehen, from the two psukim. Lo re'i nasi kere'i dayan. The characteristic or an aspect of a leader is not exactly similar to a judge. V'lo re'i dayan kere'i nasi. Nor is the characteristic or aspect of a judge like that of a leader, implying lo re'i dayan ki nasi. Okay, in other words, they're not exactly equivalent. Shahare dayan ata mitzuvah al hara'ato. That regarding a judge, we're talking about a sage, one of the chachamim, you are commanded to follow his halachic decision. Okay? Kurei nasi, okay? Similar to that of the leader. She'iyata mitzvah al horato. Because there you are not commanded, okay, to follow halachic decisions of a leader. Velo re'i nasi kire'i dayan. Nor is the aspect or characteristics of a leader similar to that of the judge. Why? Shahanasi atamitzaveh al hamra'ato. Because regarding the leader, you have a command in regards to the issue of rebellion. Okay? Kirei dayan she'iyatamitzaveh al hamra'at. Because whereas for a judge, you do not have a direct command regarding any rebellion. So what happens?
What's the context of the rebellion?
Again, it's
But you can rebel.
that's a different. Okay, right? Hatzad hashaveh shebahem. Okay, we'll get to second. I just got thrown off Zoom, so hold on a second. All right, we're getting back on. Hatzad hashaveh, show the common aspect. Shehein ba'amka, they are part of your people. Va'atam muzhar al kilalatam, and you are warned about cursing them. Okay, all right. So in other words, those are two, right? Af ani, so avicha sheba'amcha. So here too, I'm going to bring in the example of your father, who is part of your people. Va'atam muzhar al kilalato, and thus you are warned about cursing him. Ma lahatzad hashaveh shebahem, whereas the side, that the aspect that is common to them. Okay, in other words, this is a challenge now to this binyan of, by saying, wait a second, the example that you gave of the judge or the example of the leader, whether it be a king or the head of the tribe or whatever, okay, gedulatan garmalahem. Maybe it was their significant status that caused the warning not to curse them. Okay, maybe that is right. Talmud Lomar, but we have a pasuk that tells us, Lo tikalel charesh be'umlalim sheba'amcha hakatuv medaber. We have then another pasuk that says you should not curse somebody who is deaf, okay, among the humble people of your people. That's also. And so therefore, Malech Heresh, Shekain Charishato Garmalo. But a challenge. Well, maybe we're saying, and this also is a unique case, that because of his unique status, that's why you're not permitted to curse him. Nasi v'dayan yochichu, says the Gemara. No, our examples of the leader and the judge will prove. Male nasi v'dayan shekain gedulatan garmalehem. It's possible that regarding the leader and the judge, that their higher status is causing the argument not to curse them. Charesh yochiach will take the opposite and say somebody who is a very low status. We'll take that and say, okay, that maybe that's proof. Okay. The Chazar Hadin, says the Gemara, and we can go round and round with this argument, right, to show that that's the case, right? Okay, what happened? Lo re'izeh kire'izeh. The aspect of this one is not like the aspect of that one. V'lo re'izeh kire'izeh. And not the aspect or characteristic of this one is like that one. Hatzad hashaveh shebahen. This is common characteristic shehen. V'shehen ba'amcha, that they are part of your people. V'atamuz har al kilalatan, and that you are warned in all three of these cases, really, not just the two, okay, about not cursing. Af ani avi avicha, so therefore I bring in the father, your father, sheba amcha, because he is part of your nation, part of your people, va'atamuz har al kilalatzo, and you are therefore also warned about cursing him. Let's go on. Maletzad hashava shaba. So what then is the common characteristic? Okay, shekain mishunin. Okay, because all are different from ordinary people. Ella rather. So in other words, we're for the time being we've put aside the binyan av as our means of proof. Okay, and we're now okay, okay, and therefore we're going to suggest an alternative. Imkain nichtov kra. Okay, and otherwise we will put forward a different example with a pasuk. O Elohim v'cheresh, O Nasi v'cheresh, Elohim lamali. Okay, so we could take any two of the three examples, each of those psukim, and find a common characteristic. Make a note by art scroll number 44. Okay, in this case, so the Gemara now continues. Elohim lamali. Why then did I use the example? If you say I can group any two out of the three, all right, of these examples, what about that one? Im eno inyan legufo. If we say it doesn't apply specifically to itself, tinehu inyan la'aviv. We'll use it and teach it in regards to the issue of cursing one's father. Hanecha, that explanation and use of the pasuk as a means of a warning is acceptable, but under only certain circumstances. Namely, sorry, Laman da Amar Elohim Chol. That applies if we say that the term Elohim here comes back to referring to what we said earlier as human judges. In other words, it is not referring to a sacred issue. Ela Laman da Amar Kodesh. But according to the one who interprets that phrase, okay, means that it's a name for the divine being. Okay, my ikalamemar. What are you going to say there? Okay, the Tanya, as we learned elsewhere in a Braita, we have the fact that there is a machloket. Elohim chol divrei Rabbi Yishmael. That in the pasuk, the use of the term there Elohim implies civil judges, human beings. That's according to the Academy of Rabbi Yishmael. Rabbi Akiva, however, Omer Elohim Kodesh. Right? I use that in this case. That term is a divine name. Vitanya, and we learn elsewhere in a Braita. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov says as follows: Hazara, in terms of a warning, the Mavarech et Hashem minayin, in terms of using finding a verse that gives us a warning that to curse Hashem. What's the basis for that? Okay, where do we derive it? Talmud Lomar. Okay, okay. Here in this case, he would read it. Rabbi Eliezer would read it. Elokim lo tikalel. Okay, Lamanda Amar Elohim Chol. According to the one who says the word is basically human. All right, Gamar Kodesh Michol. He would learn the prohibition of the sanctity from the secular. Laman da Amar, according to the one who says Elohim Kodesh, that the use of the phrase reflects sanctity, Gamrin and Chol mi Kodesh. He would learn the prohibition of not cursing the human from the sacred. Okay? Bishlema Laman Damar Elohim Ho, according to the one who's fine, who says the use of that term is secular. okay, the civil judges, Gamar Kodesh Micho. It's possible that he could learn the prohibition of not cursing the divine, okay, from the secular. Elilaman Amar, but according to the one who says Elohim Kodesh, that it is a use of the divine name, Gamar Micho, Mikodesh, is it possible to learn the prohibition of cursing the human judges from the Holy One? Dilma Akodesh Azhar, Acholo Azhar. Maybe it's possible that perhaps regarding its use as a divine name, we would say that is a valid warning. But in regards to human judges, we would say it's not a valid warning. In Cain, if that's the case, says the Gemara, lichtov kra, let the verse actually be written with the following, with one lamed, not two lameds. Lo takel, that one should not curse. Okay, all right. But instead, as we go to the top of the new Amud, my lo tikalel. Why then the double lamed in the word? You shouldn't curse. Shmami not tarte. We learn both of them. Okay, right? So that it both applies both to prohibition of cursing with the divine being as well as cursing human judges as well. Okay. Right. Okay. We now go to a new Mishnah, and we're back to sexual discussions here. Okay. Okay. Right. So I want to just quickly point out as we go into the new Mishnah. Okay. Again, that there are some items I'm going to point out, some of the notes in Art Scroll that go into a little bit more detail, okay, that I will just call your attention to. Matnitin, our Mishnah says as follows, Haba al na'ara ha'me'urasa, one who cohabits with a na'ara, which we're defining as a young girl who has shown some physical development between 12 and 12 and a half. Okay? And she is a betrothed young girl. Eino chayav, he is not liable, ad shetehei na'ara, unless she is a na'ara, clearly in that age range, a betula, that she is considered a virgin, mu'urasa, and she is considered betrothed, not fully married. Okay? Vehi baveit aviha, and she is still living in the domain of her father. Okay? Ba'u aleha shnayim, if two men have relations with her, harishon beskila, the first would be punished with the death penalty of stoning, vahasheni bechenek, and the second one would be punished with the death penalty of suffocation. Okay? All right? Art's right. Right. So the point is, well, she would not be right, exactly, Busula. Art scroll number 6. Okay. All right. Okay. We're not talking about her a moment. We're just focusing on the men. Okay.
So Nara is spelled like Na'ar. There's a hey missing in the Torah. When it says Nara Hamarasa, there's no hey at the end to make it feminine.
There's only one time that hey is used for Na'ara.
Right.
In the Torah.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
every time the word Na'ara is written, that is hey.
Yeah. Okay. So I just point to
Later pointing.
Art scroll note number 6. Okay. Tanu Rabbanan, as we get now to a bright. Na'ara. Okay, there's our note, and there's the shows up in Dvarim, where it has the hey. Okay, Na'ara velo bogeret. Okay, and not a bogeret, which is a girl that certainly has signs of maturity and is above the age of 12 and a half. Okay, bitula, that she is a virgin, velo beula, and not one who has had any kind of sexual encounter. Me'uras. Oh, 1 second. Okay. Me'urasa, she is betrothed. Velo nisu'ah. Okay, and she's not fully married. Okay. Baveit aviha. Okay, that she is still in the domain of her father. Okay, implying that she is not in the authority or domain of the husband. Okay, I'm using both those terms because the Gemara is going to later get into the question of what about if she has been transferred. Okay, all right, we're going to see in a moment. Okay, Prat, with the exception, says the Gemara, l'shemasar ha'aviv l'shluchei habal, with the exception that she has been transferred from the father to the stewards, the representatives of the husband. Okay, so she was living in her father's house, and then the servants of the husband come and pick her up, and they transfer her. In other words, they walk her, they carriage her, whatever it is, to bring her to the domain of the husband. But she is considered then no longer under the authority domain of the father.
Right, good.
Okay, that's the point.
If she lives in Baltimore, the wedding's in Lake. If the Chassid's people pick her up and bring her to the wedding, her father has relinquished control.
Right.
If the father drives her to Lakewood, she's still under his control. So the Mishnah is saying, if and when she's turned over to the husband's people, then she's lacking in her father's control, and she would only get chenek, not the straight. I mean, if it's a Kalhanes
Whatever.
or
Okay.
Skila.
Make a note by art scroll number 12. Okay? Amar Rav Yehuda. This is Rav Yehuda, Amar Rav, in the name of Rav. Zo divrei Rabbi Meir. He says this Mishnah is really based on the approach and language, the view of Rabbi Meir. Aval chachamim, but the sages, omrim na'ara ha'me'urasa. When the sages say that it is a young woman who is betrothed, afilu ktana b'mashma. They are also including in their view one who is under 12 years old. Okay? A ktana. Now, we're going to see this come back shortly. Amar le Rav Acha, says Rav Acha midiftei le Ravina. Okay, and he's going to ask a question. Mimai dematnit in Rabbi Meir. How is it that we know and claim that this Mishnah is according to the view of Rabbi Meir? Ulama'ute ktana nami, and that he excludes also a girl that's a minor in this case? Dilma Rabbananhi. Perhaps our text is according to the view of the rabbi. Ulama'ute bogeret v'tulo. And it simply comes to exclude a girl that is more than 12 and a half and no more. Amarle. So Ravina tries to answer. Hai eno chayav ad shetehen ne'ura betula me'urasa. Okay, here in this case, we see that he's saying that the individual who cohabits with her, okay, is based on the fact that she is a 12 to 12 and a half year old, that she is a virgin, and that she is betrothed. Eino chayav, that he is not liable, ela al hana'ara betula me'urasa, that specifically these criteria apply. Mebayele. That's what it seems to be telling us, wanting us to understand. Vetulo mide. Okay? Vetulo, and no more. Okay? So what happens, says the Gemara? Mide. All right, since we've said that, ba'imine, we have now another question. Rabbi Yaakov bar Ada, Rav, from Rav. Ba el haktana me'urasa. What happens then, he asks, if someone cohabits with a child, a minor, who is betrothed? the Rabbi Meir Mahu. How does Rabbi Meir then interpret that? Okay, would she be subject to which death penalty? Okay, if we're going to see, would he be subject to any death penalty? That's going to be our question. Or would it be the same or a different death penalty? Okay, would it be the subject of death penalty of stoning or of strangulation if there were to be a death penalty? Okay, so that's what the Gemara continues. Legamre mamait le. Did we say that it completely, totally excludes the individual from any kind of punishment? Or perhaps miskila, that it excludes him from the punishment of stoning, mima'ed le. Okay, that might be our case, but that doesn't mean that he doesn't get a punishment. Okay, that's our question right here at the moment. All right, as we get back on. Okay, okay. So what happens? All right. Says the Gemara as we continue. Amarle mistabra. It would seem logical to perhaps to say miskila mima'edle, that he is excluded from the punishment of stoning. Okay, but still gets a punishment, of course, probably strangulation. Okay, vahakti, but isn't it written elsewhere in a pasuk, umetu gam shnehem, that both of them, okay, are put to death. Namely, when they are of equal status, particularly age, okay, all right, shnehem, ad shehiyu shnehem shavin, until both have to be equal. So the implication being to incur execution, they would both have to be equal status or age. And as a minor, she would be exempt, and therefore I might argue, therefore, that he too should be exempt. Okay? All right? Shatik Rav. Rav was silent at this point to be able to give an answer. Shmuel now comes to Rav's defense.
Wow.
Amar Shmuel, that's why. My Tama Shatik Rav. What was the reason that Rav was silent? V'nema. So let us say, namely, let us tell him the following. We have another pasuk that says, Umeit ha'ish asher shachav ima levado, that the man would be put to death on his own, for his own act. Okay, but not necessarily the girl being a minor. Okay?
So the question is it 11-year-old?
Okay, let's go back to the Gemara now. Okay, all right, so that's the point. Okay, the Gemara wants to tell us regarding this idea of these two psukim. One that says umetu gam shnehem, the other pasuk who says meit ha'ish asher shachav ima levado. So we have two psukim. What's the problem? Kitana'i, that we have a machloket tanaim. Umetu gam shnehem, citing that first pasuk that it implies clearly equal status, particularly age. Okay, ad shehu shnehen shavin, divrei Rabbi Yoshaya. That was how Rabbi Yoshaya interpreted that they had to be clearly equal. Rabbi Yonatan Omer, he cites the other pasuk, Umeit ha'isha asher shachav ima levado. That's what he cites. Excuse me, Va'idach, and the other one, going back to Rabbi Yoshaya. Hahi, how does he handle that? Umetu gam shnehem, that it says that the two of them die. My darishbe, how does he expound it? Amar Rava, he expounds it, lema'ute ma'aseh chidudim, that it excludes an act of stimulation. And Mark, okay? In other words, the man rubbing his body or organ against the woman, but does not actually indulge in actual bia. Art School note number 23 gives us a explanation of that in more detail. Okay, ve'idach in the other one. Okay, ma'aseh chidudim lav klumhi, considers an act of stimulation no act at all. To me, ve'idach and the other, hai levado, where this pasuk we said indicates himself. Mai darishbe, how does he expound it? Keditanya, as taught elsewhere in a Braita. Ba'u aleha asara b'nei adam, if 10 men joined together and had an event with her, va'adayan hi batula, okay, and she still remained a virgin because their intercourse was the shalo kedarka, okay, not in the normal natural method. Kulam b'skila, says the Braita. They all would be punished by skila. Rebbe Omer, but Rebbe says how Rishon b'skila, the first would be punished with the death penalty of skila, the kulan b'chenek, and all the others would be through chenek.
Why are they punished? But they all did it Shiloh.
Because they still had race,
Still considered.
still had relations with.
Okay.
All right.
Only a 9.
We're gonna
not
get,
first.
well, we'll get to that momentarily. Okay, v'kulan b'chenek. Now we get to another bright. Tanu Rabbanan, says this bright. Now we're going to take the example of a Kohen's daughter that commits adultery. Ubat ish Kohen ki techel liznot, says the pasuk. The Kohen's daughter who commits initially an act of sexual impropriety, okay? Her punishment would be burning, okay? Straight. Okay, and the question we're here is, our Braita here does not clarify for us whether she is considered a arusa or a nisua. Okay, Rebbe Omer, says Rebbe, then that's still a problem because she's still going to bring embarrassment and everything to her father. Okay, right.
No, if she's if she's married, then she's.
Well, there's a difference between betrothed and fully married. If she's panuya, it would be a different situation. Then surely she's not betrothed or not married.
Wouldn't get anything.
She may not get any. She may not get any. Okay. Tchila, says Rebbe, initially. In other words, the question may depend if this is her first act of sexual impropriety, or has she done it more than once? V'chein hu omer, and similar, he says, excuse me, umeit ha'ish asher shachav ima levado. And Rebbe cites in this case the pasuk, okay, that the man himself who lies with her is the one who's going to get the death penalty, which would seem there, answer your question, David, that according to Rebbe, she would not get a death penalty. Okay? All right? However, my Kamar, what is he saying here? Amar Rav Huna, says Rav Huna, Berei de Rav Yehoshua, the son of Rav Yehoshua, Rebbe Rebbe Yishmael Sevirale, that Rebbe must hold to the same opinion as Rabbi Yishmael. The Amar, who says, Arusa Yatsa Lesreifa, okay? Velo Nisua, okay? That he's saying that if she were betrothed in that situation, she would not get skila. Instead, she would get perhaps sreifa. Velo nisua, and not a married woman. Vahachi ka'amar. And this is what he's really trying to tell us. Im tchilat bi'a beznut, if this was, so to speak, the first incident of sexual behavior of that kind, bisreifa, that would be punishable, okay? She would be then excluded from the punishment of chenek and instead have the punishment of bisreifa. Idach, but otherwise it would be the punishment of a chenek, of strangulation. Mai, what do we mean then? V'chein, okay, when he said that, okay, ki hatam, as we said there, mahatam b'tchilat bia, where there it was the first act of adultery that we were talking about. Hatam b'tchilat bia, kamashta as we learned from the pasuk. Hachanami here too, b'tchilat bia kamashta. This also is what the pasuk is telling us, right? Amarle. So he said to him, Rav Bivi bar Abai, as follows: Mar lo hachi. He said, no. He says, Rebbe did not teach it that way. That wasn't his explanation. Amar, okay, our master didn't teach it that way. What do you mean, Amar? Umano, and who do you mean when you say our master? Are you saying Rebbe? No, says the Gemara. Rav Yosef was the one who was teaching it based on Rebbe. Rebbe, Rabbi Meir severely. So this is the second explanation of what Rebbe meant, that he felt that the view of Rabbi Meir, and this is what his explanation was. Da'amar niseit le'echad min hapsulin, that if she were married to one of those that are considered pasul, okay, a marriage that is prohibited as a prohibition, okay, mitata b'chenek, then her death would be punished. Her act of sexual impropriety would be punished by chenek, by strangulation. Vahachi ka'amar. And this is what he means to say. Im tchilat, okay, if it's achalta, okay, if it's the beginning of the act biznut, okay, bisreifa, if the desecration act is through znut, the punishment is by burning. V'idach, but otherwise, for any other act besides the first one, it would be done, the punishment is chen. So the Gemara asks, Umay v'chein. So what do we mean here, v'chein? And furthermore, simana ba'alma. Okay? No, he says that was simply really a mnemonic device to remember what the situation was. And art scroll number 1 on the Samech Zion is on 67a. It gives further detail. And we'll stop right there.
Brilliant. Very good. Still a collegiate look. I'm jealous now. I remember the sweater